Good evening, professionals. We are commencing our 7th Corporate Law webinar series, where we'll be dealing with SEBI LODR regulations, which is Securities Exchange Board of India Listing Obligation Disclosure Requirement Regulation. Let's try to understand the history of this LODR regulation. It came into effect on 2nd September 2015, where the commencement was effective 90th day from the date of publication of this regulation in the official gazette. Hence, except for two regulations, this regulation was made applicable effective 1st December 2015. And this is in supersession of your listing agreement entered into with stock exchanges. Why this LODR was brought into force, friends? In supersession of listing agreement. So this LODR gives more power to shareholders, where it converts the contractual obligation, which was in the form of a listing agreement, to a legal binding, where the post listing these obligations and the disclosure requirements are more stipulated to all the listed entities. And for ease of reference, this is structured in such a way that all segments of capital market are consolidated into one sheet, where you have equity shares, convertible securities, IDRs, Indian depository receipts, NCDs, non-convertible debentures, NCRPS, non-convertible redeemable preference shares, SMEs, all under one sheet. It also grants wide power to shareholders to enforce all the listing obligations by all these entities. With this brief introduction, today we are going to see in the first chapter of the SEBI LODR in Series 7 about the obligations of listed entities, where out of 12 chapters in LODR, we'll be covering 2 chapters, specifically more drawing reference to the principles and the common obligation of listed entities. My sincere thanks to Ms. Aishwarya and Sundarajan for this detailed presentation on the subject. These are various legends to be used in today's presentation, friends. The agenda will be to understand the applicability, which are the securities which are well covered under LODR, and what are the obligations of listed entities, and what is the obligation of compliance officer, being the company secretary of the company, the listed entities, and where is the requirement for appointment of RTA, registrar and share transfer agent in the case of listed entities, preservation of document. There are wide set of policies mentioned in the schedule with regard to the policies, and also drawn reference to the relevant regulations, of which Reg 9 talks about preservation of documents by a policy, where certain documents have to be preserved permanently and certain documents have to be preserved for a period of 8 years. Filing of information. So here they have granted power to all the companies to do it in electronic form with regard to any filing of returns or documents, scheme of arrangement, and how the scheme of arrangement should be in consonance with these SEBI provisions before it is approved by a court or tribunal being NCLT, and what are the modes in which payment of dividend or interest or any redemption shall happen, and grievance redressal mechanism. So how the investor complaints shall be redressed by the listed entity. The background of LODR. In order to protect the interest of investors, which we all know that is the preamble of SEBI. And this governs the listing obligation SEBI LODR regulation, which was promulgated by the board on 2nd September 2015. This is in supersession of listing agreement, where listing agreement was more a binding obligation, a contractual arrangement between the listed entity and the stock exchanges, and here it is a regulation in common to various segments of capital market. And this regulation prescribes different disclosure requirements for different types of listed securities. And here, to avoid this overlapping or duplication, what they have done is the pre-listing obligation requirements are more drawn reference to in ICDR, issue of capital and disclosure requirements, and your ILDS, which is your issue and listing of debt securities regulation, and all the post-listing obligations and the disclosure requirements are as provided in LODR. and hence this avoids duplication. And immediate implementation is given to two regulations, which are Regulation 23, Sub-Regulation 4 and Regulation 31A. Regulation 23 Sub-Reg 4 deals with material related party transaction, where instead of special resolution, an ordinary resolution will suffice provided the related parties abstain from voting with regard to these transactions. And Regulation 31A deals with disclosure of class of shareholders and reclassification. Reclassification from promoter to public upon fulfillment of certain conditions. This regulation comprises 12 chapters and 11 schedules. Today we are going to discuss in detail about two chapters. Chapter 1 deals with the short title, commencement and applicability of regulation, where the application of this regulation is for those entities which are listed on any of the following securities, which are your specified securities listed on main board or SME exchange or institutional trading platform. What is specified security? So specified security shall mean your equity shares, unconvertible securities. If you draw reference to SEBI ICDR regulation, sub-regulation K of regulation 2 defines convertible securities as those securities which are convertible into equity shares, and it includes convertible preference shares and convertible debt instruments. And main board, again main board draws reference to your SEBI ICDR regulation, where main board is the recognized stock exchange having nationwide terminal but excludes your SME exchange. What is SME exchange then? SME exchange is again defined in ICDR, which is for the specified securities which are listed in SME platform. Again, SME platform is the trading platform having nationwide terminal, but it excludes your main board. So why SME exchange was formed is more for these SMEs who have difficulty in getting their securities listed on the main board, because main board has stringent eligibility disclosure norms and while invoking IPO. The second set of applicability of these regulations are for the segment relating to your NCDs, non-convertible debt securities, which are predominantly issued by your NBFCs, financial institutions, banks, more for meeting their capital adequacy norm, and non-convertible redeemable preference shares, PDIs, perpetual debt instrument, and perpetual non-cumulative preference shares. Indian depository receipts are your third segment to which this LODR is applicable, where Indian depository receipt, as the name goes, is the financial instrument which is denominated in Indian rupees and issued in the form of depository receipts. And this is more for foreign investors to infuse funds, and where the securities are listed in Indian company and they are in the form of equity shares. And securitized debt instrument. Securitized debt instrument means an instrument which is in the form of individual loan which is securitized. So individual loan which is a debt is securitized in the instant case, and where it is listed, the LODR regulation gets applicable and it is covered in a specific chapter by itself. Security receipts are again the receipts which are in the form of a security issued by ARCs, asset reconstruction companies, to qualified buyers and who are eligible, and the evidence of this instrument is the right title or interest in the financial securities which are again securitized. And units issued by mutual funds, again units issued by mutual funds in several places of the relevant regulation there is a specific exemption to units issued by mutual funds. Why? Because they are already governed by SEBI Mutual Fund Regulations 1996, and hence to avoid duplication of multiple regulations under which they have to be governed under. Any other specified securities by the board being SEBI. Principles which are governing disclosures and obligation of listed entity. We discussed chapter 1, which is a small chapter which deals with short title, commencement, definitions and applicability of regulation. Chapter 2 deals with principles. The principles of the disclosure of listed entities are more drawn reference to in line with your IOSCO principles, your International Organization of Securities Commission. And the second set of principles are your principles on good corporate governance, which are drawn reference in line with your OECD principles. Principles governing disclosure and obligation, Regulation 4. These are additions made in LODR as compared to your listing agreement where the governing principles were not specified. The listed entity which has listed its security shall make disclosure and be obliged in accordance with following principles. 1. The information shall be in accordance with the applicable accounting standards. 2. It shall be, again, the accounting standards shall be in conformity in letter and in spirit, and the company shall conduct annual audit by independent, competent and qualified auditors. They shall refrain from misrepresentation and ensure that the information is not misleading. So it should be well protecting the interest of investors. And of course, adequate and timely information dissemination to stock exchanges, and the information shall be accurate and in simple language, and the channels for spreading information shall provide for equal, timely and cost efficient access to relevant information by investors. So if such financial results are being published in the website, it should be disseminated to the investors in equal platform, and also should be cost efficient access given and not to be a paid website. And listed entities shall abide by all provisions of applicable laws including securities laws, and they shall make disclosures and follow their obligations in letter and spirit, taking into consideration the interest of all stakeholders. So they should not be giving interest only to majority shareholders, equality of rights given to all shareholders. And filing reports and all documents which are event based has to be filed periodically. So there is this compliance charter as to for each regulation what is the timeline. So they have to adhere to the timeline while making this information posted to the stock exchanges. And periodic filing shall also contain information regarding the performance of the listed entity so that the investors can assess about the company's financial performance. There are several rights attached to shareholders where it is right to participate and be informed about the fundamental corporate changes that happens, an opportunity to participate and vote in the general meeting, very important, be it in their physical presence or be it an e-voting, to be informed about the procedures to vote. So they should be given clear-cut guidelines as to how they should be voting, be it a postal ballot or electronic voting. And that is the reason if we see along with the notice there is a clear instruction for postal ballot or e-voting given to all the shareholders, and they should be given enough opportunity to ask questions to the board members, to place items on the agenda and to propose resolution, to participate in key corporate governance decisions, to exercise ownership rights including institutional investors. So institutional investors' right is also well protected, and adequate mechanism to address the grievances. So their cause of concern has to be addressed, and it should be through a proper platform in which it has to be addressed and resolved at the earliest by the listed entities, and protection of minority shareholders and effective means to redress from abusive action against such minority shareholders. Such information dissemination shall happen on a timely basis, which shall include your date, location, agenda of general meetings, information about the capital structure and arrangements to obtain degree of control which is disproportionate to their ownership. So any arrangement which has this material disproportionate interest or control, then such information shall be provided, and it shall be on a timely basis, and rights attached to all series and class of shares has to be disclosed before such acquisition of shares. There shall be equitable treatment of all shareholders, and effective shareholder participation in key corporate governance decision, which we saw in 4.2a as well. Exercise of voting rights by foreign shareholders shall be facilitated, and online platform should be robust enough for them to participate effectively. And also the video conferencing in general meeting should also be a robust platform for them to participate effectively and make their representations. A listed entity shall make a framework to avoid insider trading and abusive self-dealing. Here, they should be providing over and above the PIT regulations, which talks about prohibition of insider trading. The policy or the framework of insider trading and abusive self-dealing shall be prepared in such a way that it protects the interest of all shareholders. So, what is abusive self-dealing, friends? This is people who have ready access to the information of the company, who could also be the corporate shareholders in the company, and they should, just because they have information, they should not take undue advantage and drive the market against the interest of other investors. So in order to protect the interest of other investors and also the company, abusive self-dealing necessary framework shall be devised by the listed entity. And process and procedures of general meeting shall also provide for equitable treatment of all shareholders. It should not be in such a way that people with majority votes should be given first preference kind of. So even with one vote, one shareholder should be having equal right as against a majority shareholder, and such entity shall not make any procedure which is unduly difficult or expensive to cast votes. So for them to cast votes, it should be free and fair treatment, and it should not be undue or expensive. And role of stakeholders in corporate governance, they shall respect the right of all the stakeholders, and they shall have the right to obtain redress for violation of their rights, and relevant and reliable information shall be provided, which shall also be timely as provided in 4.2b, and such company shall devise an effective whistleblower mechanism. So visual mechanism over and above your definition in section 177 of Companies Act, SEBI LODR also draws reference to devising effective whistleblower mechanism. So if you read LODR to answer our question in the beginning as to why LODR, it is also in alignment with various provisions of Companies Act, and also for ready reference of various disclosures, like the disclosure on material or price sensitive information. There is one schedule. For ease of reference, you can refer that. For disclosure on website, what are the disclosures you have to mandatorily mention in your website? There is a specific schedule. And when you see the disclosure in annual report, what are the statements to be made in the annual report? There is a separate segment or schedule by itself, and hence it is for ease of reference. Each category is by itself specified in the schedule. The main provisions, the substantive provisions, are as defined in the main provision of the listing obligation and disclosure regulation, while all the procedural requirements are as provided in the schedules forming part. 4.2e talks about your disclosure and transparency. Listed entity shall prepare and disclose financial and non-financial information in accordance with the prescribed accounting standards. So what is non-financial information, friends? That is why you have all your secretarial standards. So financial information, it is going to be in line with your IAS, Indian Accounting Standard, or your IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, by virtue of which you have your Ind AS. And non-financial information is the mandatory applicability of your SS1, SS2 pursuant to section 118 subsection 10 of the Companies Act, which makes it important that as a matter of good corporate governance, you provide additional information more for the protection of the investors. So they will have information in place, not only financial but also operational, strategic information and the risk related information about the company in various such disclosures provided by the listed entity. The channels for spreading information shall be equal, timely and cost effective and efficient, and minutes shall also record the dissenting opinion. This is more in alignment to your secretarial standard provision, where it says that not only assenting opinion but also your dissenting qualified opinion shall be recorded in the board minutes. Responsibilities of board of directors. So here till now we discussed the principles, the obligations, the rights and the timely reliable information to be provided. Now we will deal with the responsibilities of the board members. Board members and your key managerial personnel shall disclose to the board of directors whether they directly or indirectly on behalf of third parties have a material interest in any transaction directly affecting the listed entity, which is your disclosure of interest. The board and senior management shall maintain operational transparency to the stakeholders, and they shall also at the same time maintain confidentiality. While there is this obligation of disclosure, that should not affect the confidentiality with which it has to be disseminated. And other key functions of the board members are to review and guide the corporate strategy, risk policy, budgets, your business plans, and monitor the effectiveness of the governance practices of the listed entity, and selecting, compensating, monitoring the KMP. That is the reason you have your evaluation of performance of your key managerial personnel as well, and more importantly overseeing the succession planning. Hence, you need to have a policy devised for having effective succession planning mechanism for your senior management. Aligning KMP and remuneration of board with the long-term interest of the listed entity and its shareholders. Ensuring transparent nomination of the board of directors with diversity of experience, perspective, knowledge, and gender in the board. And monitoring and managing the potential conflict of interest of management, board members, and shareholders, overseeing the process of disclosure and communication, and having your board evaluation framework done effectively and evaluating the same. And other responsibilities of the board members are to provide strategic guidance to the listed entity, that is at the time of review of your business plan or while reviewing the quarterly performance and the financial results. They shall provide strategic guidance and give appropriate directions to the listed entity, and the members shall act in good faith with due diligence and care in the best interest of the investors and also the listed entity. They shall encourage continuing directors training to ensure that the members are kept up to date, and hence you have this familiarization program and all, where they should not only be abreast with all the latest developments in the company but also with all the laws which are applicable to the company, and they shall also treat all shareholders fairly while making such decision and maintain high ethical standards in the interest of stakeholders, and very importantly they should exercise independent judgment on the corporate affairs, and they shall consider assigning sufficient number of non-executive members of the board who are capable of exercising independent judgment, and hence you have your independent directors composition in your board. They should have the ability to step back to assist executive management. So step back approach should be available more if they find something to be not in the interest of the company, which is detrimental to the interest of the investors or the company. They should adopt the step back approach. And composition and working procedures shall be well defined. They shall be able to commit themselves effectively to their responsibilities in fulfilling their responsibilities and facilitating the independent directors to perform their role very effectively. And regulation 4.3 is very important, friends. So these principles shall act in consonance with all the regulations which are the obligations of listed entities in the respective chapters. And 4.3 clearly says that if there is any inconsistency between these principles and the relevant regulations, then the principle specified in this chapter shall prevail because of the principle of ejusdem generis, and the specific provisions in the principle shall override the general provisions. And chapter 3 talks about your common obligation of listed entities, which is common as the name goes for various type of securities issued. And from chapter 4 to chapter 9 you have for each type of security what kind of obligations with regard to their disclosure norms or with regard to their listing obligations, what they have to perform as post listing obligation is well covered. And from chapter 10 to chapter 12 it is the obligation of the relevant stock exchanges, and in case of default what are the measures, and chapter 12 it concludes with miscellaneous provisions. General obligations. Listed entity shall ensure that their KMPs, promoters, directors, or any other person who is dealing with the listed entity complies with the responsibilities or obligations assigned to them under the regulations, which is very important. So this is one of the key provision for determining the general obligation for all listed entities, where it says these are the officers who shall be responsible for complying with all the provisions under the regulation which are as applicable to them. 6 talks about the specific compliance obligations of the compliance officer being the company secretary. So, over and above your section 203 read with rule 8 and 8A, which makes it obligatory for listed entity to appoint a company secretary. Regulation 6 makes it obligatory for all listed entities to appoint a qualified company secretary as the compliance officer of the company. And his responsibilities, we went through in regulation 4 about the responsibilities of board of directors, and regulation 5 with regard to the responsibilities which are assigned to the promoters, directors and KMPs. In regulation 6, it is with specific reference to company secretaries. They shall ensure conformity with the regulatory provisions applicable to the company. More importantly, they shall coordinate with the board, stock exchanges and depositories with regard to the respective compliance, and ensure that the procedures followed by the entity are correct, and monitor the email address of grievance redressal division. These are not applicable to units of mutual fund. Why? Because they are specifically covered by the SEBI mutual fund regulations. Share transfer agent. Listed entity shall appoint a share transfer agent or manage the share transfer facility in-house. They can't do it in-house where the securities exceed 1 lakh. Where the option available to them is option A, either the listed entity shall themselves get registered as category 2 with the board as RTA, or appoint RTA who is registered with the board. Listed entity shall ensure that all activities in relation to share transfer are either maintained in-house or through an RTA who is registered with the board. And 7.3 talks about your compliance certificate to be submitted once in every half year within 1 month from the end of the half year, where it shall be signed dual signature by your compliance officer and also by the authorized representative of your RTA. SEBI, in the light of the COVID measures on 19th March, extended with reference to the last half year ended 31st March 2020, where the obligation is for the listed entities to do such compliance certificate filing on or before 30th April to 31st May 2020. 7.4, where you are going to change your share transfer agent, you may do so provided there is an agreement entered into between the company, the new share transfer agent, and such appointment shall be intimated to the stock exchanges within 7 days of entering into such agreement, and such agreement shall also be placed before the board of directors. And again, this regulation is not applicable to units of mutual funds. Cooperation with intermediaries registered with the board. Listed entity shall cooperate with and also submit the correct information to all the intermediaries who are registered with the board, be it your credit rating agencies, or be it your registrar and share transfer agent RTA, or be it your debenture trustees who are registered with the board, because they will have their obligation to report to SEBI regarding various compliances, and they will be able to submit such compliance only when the listed entity is able to provide them adequate information with regard to those compliance obligations, and hence it is mandatory for listed entities to submit all relevant information as and when it is sought for by these intermediaries. Again, this regulation shall not be applicable to units of mutual funds. Preservation of documents. There are several policies which are made mandatory for all the listed entities, of which Regulation 9 talks about your preservation of documents policy, which has to be devised by all the listed entities, where there are 2 categories. One is where such documents have to be preserved permanently, like your financial documents, legal documents, compliance documents, tax related documents, or those documents which could be preserved for a period of 8 years after completion of relevant transaction. So these have to be segregated, and this policy has to be formulated and adopted by the board of all the listed entities. Entity may keep the documents in electronic mode. Regulation 10 talks about filing the necessary documents with the relevant stock exchange on the electronic platform. A listed entity, while formulating a scheme of arrangement or compromise, which is going to be presented to any court or tribunal, shall not do or devise such scheme overriding the provisions of the security laws or requirement of stock exchange. And this is again not applicable to units of mutual fund. Regulation 12 talks about specific modes in which payment of dividend or interest or be it redemption of any debenture or redemption of your preferences. So it shall be in the mode as specified in Reg 12 read along with the specific pattern in which it has to be done in Schedule 1. Listed entities shall use any of the electronic mode of payment facility approved by RBI in the manner specified in Schedule 1 with regard to these payments. And if it is not possible to issue such electronic modes of payment, which is your RTGS or NECS, the checks may be issued. And if the amount exceeds 1,500, then it shall be sent by way of only speed post is what is mandated. They shall use a facility of ECS, RTGS, NEFT. Unlisted entity shall either on its own or through any registered intermediary use above facility. So through your RTA, if you are going to use this, you may do so with regard to the aforesaid payments. And the bank details of the investor has to be maintained by, if it is in DMAT mode, by getting the details from your depository, NSDL, CDSL, or if it is going to be in physical mode, the shares are held in physical, then you may obtain the bank details directly from the investor. If such details are not available, then the payment shall be made using payable at par warrants or checks, and they shall mandatorily print the bank account details of the investor on such payment instruments. An address shall be printed if the bank details are not available. So Schedule 1 read with Regulation 12 is very important with regard to your disbursement of dividend or in case of payment of interest on debentures or redemption of your debentures or preferences. Grievance redressal mechanism. So SEBI brought in the SEBI scores. What is SEBI scores? Scores is your SEBI compliance redressal system, which was brought into effect from 2014, and where it is through online platform and all the listed entities can upload their particular complaint on the platform, the SEBI scores, and SEBI, after receipt of the response from the investor, they will see whether such particular complaint is redressed effectively or not. If they are happy with the response and the investor is going to say that yes, my particular complaint is resolved, then they will remove it from the scores. If they are not convinced about the response given, and even if the investor is going to say that this particular complaint is still pending, then it will remain as pending and unresolved in the scores portal, and the listed entity shall take all possible measures to ensure that the redressal of particular complaint is effectively done. So listed entity shall ensure that adequate steps are taken for timely redressal of investor complaints. They shall make sure that it is registered on the scores platform or any other platform to handle the investor complaints electronically, and they shall file with the recognized stock exchange on a quarterly basis within 21 days from the end of each quarter a statement showing the position of investor complaints. The investor complaints which are pending at the beginning of the quarter, investor complaints, say if there were investor complaints pending at the beginning of the quarter 3, and the company received during the quarter 2, so 3 plus 2, 5. Company resolved investor complaints during the quarter 4, so 5 minus 4, 1. So investor complaint pending at the end of the quarter, they have to report 1. They have to disseminate this information to stock exchange on a quarterly basis, and the timeline is within 21 days, and they shall also report the same in their financial results, quarterly financial results. The statement as specified above shall be placed on quarterly basis also before the board of directors of the listed entity. And listed entity shall pay all such fees or charges as applicable to the recognized stock exchange in the manner as specified by the board. Thank you very much, friends. I'll be happy to take your questions if any. Otherwise, we can wind up this session, which is the part 1 of your series 7, which deals with SEBI ICDR, where in part 1, we discussed in detail about chapter 1, 2, 3 of SEBI LODR. In our next segment, we will be discussing about chapter 4, which is exhaustive and wide, which talks about the listing obligations of specified securities. Thank you very much, friends. Take care. Stay safe.